Welcome to another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Of course, I'm your host, JJ Kitchen. Guys, we always look forward to, and I appreciate everyone that always tunes into the Sunday conversation. I always do look forward to Sundays because one, I get to interact with each and every one of you, answer questions, the dialogue back and forth. But this is gonna be a somber one today because we're gonna be leading off, obviously talking about the news that went down the wire today. Obviously, Pitt losing a very talented but great personal individual in Mason Alexander, a young man that went home to Indiana, to his hometown, and really just involved in a horrible tragedy that lost his life over the weekend. Obviously in Indiana. Obviously, I don't know if you guys saw the picture he posted with Ashton Genty, the running back from Boise State. Obviously at the combine in Indianapolis. Beyond horrible. A young man who was really loved by everybody. I mean, you look at the outpouring of support, really all of this morning. From people from Indiana, his high school, obviously in his short time at Pitt. Just look at the outpouring of support from his teammates. It's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to jump on here. Obviously, we won't keep it to this level all show, obviously, but wanted to jump on here, man, because even though for a kid who was only here for 2 months, man, it feels like the kid was here for a couple of years. Just talking about how great of an individual he was. And obviously, I feel horrible for his family and friends. Obviously, a tremendous young man. I mean, people want to talk about him being a top of 4-star recruit, ESPN 300. I think that's great and all, but the overall impact of the individual, just how great of a person he was, how great of an individual he was, very selfless, a great teammate. It just goes on to talk about how good of people are. And how well of a job Pitt does in terms of bringing great people in. And man, Mason was one of those people. Just a tough all around stuff today, man. Waking up and seeing that news was just pretty rough and crazy. Pitt's going to be on spring break this week. Obviously everybody away from campus, just going home to visit family. In a crazy accident where just, Mason's not even the driver. He's in the passenger seat. And, yeah, it sucks. There's really, nothing else to say on top of that. A kid that's gone way too soon. I mean, I can't even tell you when I woke up this morning and I saw the stuff from ESPN, Pat Narduzzi. I just, it's just crazy. A kid that is just, the future's so bright, and you talk about the athletes and stuff like that. And obviously, I do this stuff for fun, and it's just that's tough. I can't even imagine what his family's going through. And again, I can't, from everyone here, obviously from Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen, our sponsors, talk to our sponsors today about it and whatnot, and we can't send enough love and support and absolute prayers to the Alexander family and to the community in Indiana. Just a great young man, lost extremely early. It's crazy that this stuff even happens, and you wish it doesn't happen to your program. But man, I just cannot send enough prayers and support and love towards their family, the Alexander family, and just wish them, through this time of grief, just know that, the Pitt family's with them. We're thinking about them. We're praying for them. And I can't talk enough about it, and just really get the young man will be missed, to say the least. So guys, obviously appreciate everyone in the comments section. Of course, smash the like button, subscribe, join Alliance 412. Obviously, as always, thank you for subscriptions. My prayers go towards Mason Alexander's family. Amen. What needs to be successful. Obviously, ready to hear the tribute to Mason, the Wonder Kid. And obviously, smashing the like button, sub button. Thank you so much, Wonder Kid. we'll dive into more like the positive stuff now. Obviously, won't be a downer the entire show, but we'll jump into it. Obviously, appreciate everyone. Obviously the prayers and whatnot. Appreciate that to say the least. And obviously, I know Mason's family certainly loves that. So, all right. Again, we'll get into a number of different topics. Obviously, Pitt, the players are on spring break this week. Obviously, the last week before spring camp begins. Obviously, if you've seen around the country, a number of different programs certainly started their spring camp. Obviously, I'm a person where I like starting spring camp after spring break, because now you have to keep the players on campus. Everything happens afterwards, and you have just consecutive practices over and over again, which is a really good thing. Obviously, we'll get into a topic of that, where we are in terms of spring camp. What do we look to learn? Where do we want to see improvements from the second year of Cade Bell, his offensive play calling, the players that are there. Obviously, the defensive staff, obviously coming back. Everyone's back. Obviously, I don't think Corey Sanders will be going anywhere. It sounds like the staff staying together, what we want to see this year, and really what needs to happen for Pitt to be successful going into this year, obviously. But first, the show is sponsored by, obviously, as always, Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. Guys, again, tremendous people through thick and thin, obviously. Incredible people, incredible customer service. Two great Pitt men run the organization, season ticket holders, major contributors to the athletic department. They do a great job. But anytime you help out a small business, that's the best way to go. And they certainly have a great wide-ranging amounts of selections, obviously, between your light beers and your heavier lagers. You guys have seen the pictures I posted online. Tremendous in terms of customer service, but obviously to the selection. So make sure you go see those guys today. Located 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. And obviously, Thompson Law Group with Brian Thompson, an attorney on your side. Right now, with many people struggling with the economy and rising costs, they're helping many people and their businesses with their debts, and they're offering free telephone consultations to assess all options available to those who are struggling, no matter the type of amount of debt they are in. You can reach them at 724-799-8404 or visit them at thompsonattorney.com. Again, Brian Thompson, a dear friend of mine, someone that I use personally for myself as an attorney. The amount of help, but more importantly, what he does in the community. He does a tremendous job in his community for where he's at, comes from a great family and has a great family. A guy that is a smaller law firm. He cares about you, the individual, cares about your individual results, does not make you a number. He cares about you, the individual, and what you need to be successful. If Brian doesn't have the answers, he'll guide you through the process to make sure you get the answers you need to be successful in the outcome that you're looking for. Obviously, again, Thompson Law Group with Brian Thompson. Call them at 724-799-8404 or visit them at thompsonattorney.com. Again, guys, we're here today. Obviously, another big thing that I wanted to talk about as well, obviously, the Alliance 412, the Oakland Originals, obviously, their YouTube channel. They had a great interview. If you've not seen that, maybe we'll show a couple clips here today. The clips, obviously, with Doran Dickerson and Pat Bostic is the two guests on there. Obviously, Trey Tipton, former wide receiver at Pitt, the host of that show, and certainly gets to have the opportunity to show the athletes their side, not just on the field, but off the field, build their brands. It's something that's great. The marketing crew that they have over there for Alliance 412, which is huge, obviously. Maybe even pull one of those videos up here, which would be really good. But obviously, too, we're going into spring camp. We have the roster as it is now. Obviously, I think when you look at the Pitt roster, I like where they're at. I still think they can add a number of different places, whether it's a tight end position to add more depth, potentially a big back. Obviously, the big back portion of it to where you can, try to add in terms of what it looks like for the running back room, a bigger back, maybe one other one besides Derek Davis. That's kind of a luxury at this point. I think it could be a major luxury there. Tight end position, you maybe want one more guy for depth purposes or someone to compete for that tight end number one. Obviously, Jake Overman is clearly the tight end number one at this point. Malachi Thomas and number two, and Jake Renda number three. Your top three tight ends up to this point. Even the defensive end position, potentially even maybe one more defensive end if you're able to grab one. And then potentially, if they had to, another defensive back if they really wanted to. I do like the depth they have there right now. If someone's experienced and they think they can add somebody, one more right there, and potentially another offensive lineman to make it 4 for the transfer portal. If someone makes sense, that they can certainly add somebody. I know Pitt will be adding some people. We'll be hearing about that after camp, so that'll be interesting to say the least. Let me see here. Obviously, the comments coming in, obviously. If you have a comment down below, if you want it to pop up on the screen, obviously down below, hit subscribe and like. And obviously, they have the super chat button down below. If you'd like to make a small donation to the podcast, you can always do that and get your question read at the very top. Obviously, here, I may share my screen here, a number of different areas where you're able to see very cool views of Oakland Originals. We'll go over that, obviously. Let me see here. Might actually even share my screen with you guys here. Really cool episode out of them. And anytime you can get former Pitt Panthers on there, that's a really big thing. Let me see here. Take a listen in here, obviously.
But that's sports for you.
Sports, man.
It's not one half. It's not one quarter. It's not 3 quarters.
I looked at my coach and almost slapped him. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Green State, 3-0. We didn't score a point. It was brutal. And he got pulled in that game. I went in late in the game.
then we'd have those losses that we shouldn't have lost, right? Western Michigan, Miami, right? We still made it to the ACC chip, but you guys are in the same scenario. You should have beat Cincy. Should have beat West Virginia.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So let's talk about it, man. What was the feeling of the locker room at that time?
I think we had a group of guys. I thought we had a group of guys.
It was a great conversation.
Billy
right
Stahl, and it starts with Billy. Billy was the starting quarterback that year, and his 2008 could not have ended any worse. I mean, we lost 3-0 in the Sun Bowl. People remember that to Oregon State, 3-0. We didn't score a point. It was
I remember that.
Brutal.
That was horrible.
And he got pulled in that game. I went in late in the game. His grandfather had just passed away, and I think everybody rallied around Billy because we all love Billy and wanted him to be successful. And he was his reclamation project was he had such a great season.
Right.
So people were pulling they wanted to play for and with him.
Mm-hmm.
But then we had guys like Pinkston, Malecki, Nate, Doran. Obviously you had young players like Dion and Ray on defense. I mean, Adam Gunn in the middle.
That list of guys is right there.
Romeus Sheard on the outside, Mick Williams inside, guys like DeSico on the back end. We just had so many guys that were no nonsense and did their job. And any one of them, if they spoke, you listened. And none of them were really that loud. I mean, who was the loudest?
Man, I mean,
it wasn't you. It wasn't Bill.
No.
Gunn would speak up, but really we didn't have anyone that was like total alpha. But as a group, they had been through so much.
Yes.
And I always feel like if you're playing for your seniors, if you're playing for those guys, it's easy, man. It's easy to give of yourself when you're playing for others. And I think that we had that in 2009. I mean, I was a backup quarterback, and what my role was? I spent as much time with Bill as our coordinator did, going through plays. That was my role. And I took pride in him being successful, even though I wanted to be out there playing.
Right.
So the shared bond was so strong. It's one of the reasons that team was so good.
Yeah, and I mean, you nailed it. And there was multiple guys. It wasn't just one guy. And I think the definition of that year was there were so many guys that had gone through adversity, and you can relate to this too.
Sure.
That had gone through a lot of adversity to get to that point, and we all understood the adversity that we all went through to play together. Right. Myself, I played 4 different positions. I was a 5-star coming in. I was a bust. So I had a lot that I had to prove. Nate Byam tore his knee up. He had a lot to prove. John Malecki switched positions twice. He moves to guard. He had a lot to prove. Jason Pinkston the year before tore his shoulder up. He had a lot to prove. Adam Gunn broke his neck.
Yeah.
Got it granted a 6th year, moved him to middle linebacker.
Damn.
He's like the grandfather. He's the reason why I think that we were honestly good at, if you want to name a player for real.
Yeah.
Like he's the reason why I think that we were that good.
He was on.
He's a starter before.
He was replacing an All-American.
And he was replacing an All-American that he came in with that were 2 years older than me.
Wow.
So we get to get him back and move him to middle backer, and he's just a student of the game. So you had him who had broke his neck, gets granted the 6th year. Bill Stahl, as he said, going through the adversity. We all understood the adversity that we went through, and then we applied it to the field. And then you put in the role players and the young players. Jonathan Baldwin, freak athlete.
Oh, man.
Put him in the mix. Deion Lewis, a freshman. You put him in the mix. Ray Graham, the backup running back,
years ago, was unreal.
A freshman. You put him in the mix. You start mixing some of those guys in with that adversity of the veterans. You got a recipe for something pretty good. And Pat said that his role was as a backup quarterback to help Billy. He also helped me every single week too. He would sit down with me. He would explain the defenses to me. He would explain where a guy's going to be whenever somebody blitzes and where a guy's going to replace. So I understood. And in putting all that together too, from my career, and this is why I look back on my career and I don't hate it. Like, it was tough in the times, but coming in as a receiver, moving to running back, shady commits, I have to move to linebacker. Never played defense in my life. I played linebacker for a year, then moved to tight end. Never put my hand in the ground in my life. But if you use that as fuel, I knew where the linebackers were dropping because I played linebacker when I played tight end. 100%. I knew where I needed to be. I knew how to beat somebody. I knew if a blitz was coming, where to attack the certain shoulder to make sure I get the block.
Senior year,
and then I had Pat, who would sit down with me every single week and tell me what the team was doing and where I was going to expose them. It all worked out. We all had a role, and we all didn't go outside of that role. And then you match that with the Youngtown and the diversity that we all went through. That's why we were pretty good.
I'll add one more thing, man. When you love your coach,
it's real.
It's real. And we love Coach Wannstedt. We heard all the stuff about, not being able to win the big one, the bowl game, the when it went. We went to a bowl game for the first time in 2008, I think since 2004, since the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty dry period. And Coach Wannstedt's first, 3 years, we didn't go to a bowl game. But that was the year that it was supposed to flip. And we heard that, and we wanted it for him because, man, he didn't need to take the Pitt job. Right. He did not need to take the Pitt job. He had coached the NFL. He could have continued coaching in the NFL or doing TV. He did it because he loved Pitt, and we felt that. And I think when you're playing for something bigger, it brings the best.
I got to pause it right there too. Obviously, we'll go into more depth of the conversation tonight. Obviously, about the spring camp. Obviously, we talked a little bit about so far what Pitt needs to the portal after spring at a luxury, but also two out of needs. We'll talk again tonight about what Pitt needs to do to be successful in this coming season. But the Pat Bostic, Doran Dickerson interview with Trey Tipton on Oakland Originals. This is on their YouTube channel. Some of these conversations, again, it brings back so many memories of Pitt fans. They talked about it to me in the DMs, on my DMs, obviously talking about how he brought back so many memories. This is on the Oakland Originals YouTube channel. Again, if you want to see the full interview, we get a couple snippets here we'll talk about. But just talking about the players, how much they love Dave Wannstedt. It's a lot like with even Pat Narduzzi right now. The players certainly love Pat Narduzzi, love their staff. They're talking about it here. But you're just going through some of the names that were on this team back in the day from 2007 to 2010 was just absolutely unreal. And some of the stories here, again, if you've not seen this episode, I'm playing a couple snippets here, but I suggest going over to watch the full thing because the stories they have here, with obviously DeJuan Blair, obviously how great he was. He had a yellow Hummer back in the day, driving around Pittsburgh, obviously, just the stories going through there. But we'll play a couple more snippets here, but just goes to show, especially back in the day, these guys certainly love Pitt. Dave Wannstedt loved Pitt. And talk about what it means to be a Pitt man and the overall duration of what it means to get there. Certainly some good stories here, and we're going to dive into a couple more of them here just before we wrap it up and head back to the conversation. But some good conversations here.
Out of you, and I felt like that was the epitome of that, even though we fell a little bit short of where we ultimately wanted to go.
Man, Pat, because you and I resemble each other more than than anybody else I've been able to sit and talk to on this podcast. And the reason why I say that is because that is such a hard role as a competitor. I don't think people really understand the unsung hero. And that's the true definition of an unsung hero.
There's some other ones here.
Some of the best people that have ever served the university. So that's like the functional reason I'm here. Yeah, I would say for me, obviously coming to Pitt was a little bit of a different decision for me than it was for guys that are from here. The reason I'm still here, I'd say others were a huge part of that. I mean, EJ Borghetti is a huge mentor.
Shout out to EJ.
EJ Borghetti, man.
He had the brilliant idea to say, hey, Pat, we're going to let you call the spring game in 2011 when I chose not to play my fifth year of eligibility because I wanted to move on with my life's work, as Chuck Noll would say. And he let me do it because Bill Fralick had, step back from doing the broadcast. And then I got a call in June that I was going to be the radio color commentator.
Wow.
At 22 years old with Bill Hillgrove, who I don't know how old he was at the time, but he was a few decades older than me, let's say. And then I got told a couple months later that they wanted me to have a full-time job in fundraising, which at that time I knew was like selling candy bars door to door for your high school team or raffle tickets, right? I didn't know. And I got to work with people in the department and learn from Donna Sanft and some of the best people that have ever served the university. So that's like the functional reason I'm here. But what motivates me is like unfinished business. I really feel like Pitt has not, our brand is not as strong as it could be. It's very strong. It's very powerful, but I think we can win all the time.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do in my role is fill gaps that are stopping us from winning all the time.
Yeah.
And, money, resources are a big part of that. NIL is a huge part of that. It's been a main function of my job for the last few years and is making sure that, Alliance 412 is in a position to keep Pitt competitive, and they've done a tremendous job of that.
Alliance 412, man.
To give our coaches and athletes, knowing that they're experienced.
And again, you love hearing a lot of this stuff from Pat Bostic, obviously. Major gifts, obviously, in the Pitt athletic department, does a great job. Again, he talks about here filling the gap, but also, too, when you've got guys like him and, you bring in Alan Green, you've got other people in the department, Joan Gable, who believe that we should be at the top echelon all the time, not have those couple of years and those spurts, but all the time. The leadership is there. I think Pat's a great, a great person, but obviously, too, a great leader in terms of that, of where they need to go. And it's good to have people like that in the department. Pitt people in the department that care about the university, but want to go take it to the next level and going to the next level. And obviously talking here, Alliance 412 has been a massive factor. And you guys have obviously heard me talk about it on here. I mean, we don't have the basketball team a couple of years ago, really 2 straight years without Alliance 412. Obviously this year, Capel has not done a good job, even with all the money that was given there and the players that were paid hundreds, if not, hundreds of thousands of dollars on top of that, closer to the millions. But obviously the money was there. The money's there. Obviously now for Pitt football, revenue sharing is going to only help even more. In the world of college athletics, football will probably, at Pitt is going to get 80 to 85% of the funds going forward. Obviously 10% more than likely going to basketball and 5% probably going to basketball and some miscellaneous. But overall, where the athletic department needs to go to be successful on a broad basis, where it needs to go on a day in, day out basis, it's just good to listen to this stuff, because the inside mindset of Pitt is that they can be 10 times better. And that the overall structure of the university is there. The leadership is there. But you've got to take it to the next level. And you have to be proactive in where you want to go with it. And you have to have that leadership. One of the leaders in there is Pat Bostic. The guys that are in there, donations, obviously raising money. I think, and I agree with him, I think that the brand is very strong of Pitt. I've heard that from numerous places outside of Pitt, obviously talking to other brands in the ACC and the Big Ten. A lot of the ACC mindset and the Big Ten mindset is a lot alike. You still obviously have a lot of rivalries between their ACC and the SEC, obviously. Plenty of rivalries in the SEC. But the mindset in terms of taking it to the next level, they agree. They think that the brand at Pitt's very good, but it could be a lot better. But it needs the structure and the leadership, which I think is officially there now. And now the business aspect of Pitt is taking off. The business mindset of where we need to go is finally taking off. It's taking a long time to get there, but it's finally starting to take off. The business mindset of raising cash and raising capital.
Experience is going to be really good because it's at Pitt. It's in Pittsburgh. They're going to Pitt degree. But ultimately, when you win, and you win at a high level, it changes your life. And I know we can do that here. We're not the big brother.
Right.
We don't have 100,000 people at every game. That don't matter. We'll still beat your ass. And that kind of is my mentality. And I feel like
say it again, 'cause I love
we're going to Pitt degree.
Thank
but
God.
Ultimately, when you win, and you win at a high level, it changes your life. And I know we can do that here. We're not the big brother.
Right.
We don't have 100,000 people at every game. That don't matter. We'll still beat your ass.
Woo! That's what you'll love to hear right there, baby. That's what you love to hear. The mindset right there. And in which he is right. At the end of the day, we don't have 100,000 people here, but guess what? We get the people here that we know we can build on it finally with the right leadership, that we're going to beat your ass, obviously. The series overall, when you look at Pitt and Penn State, obviously it's a lot closer than what people think. It's obviously very close in terms of that. But obviously, too, I'll say that conversation for another day, but that fires you up right there. Don't give a shit. Our mindset is we're going to go in there and then we're going to beat your ass. That's the Pitt way.
That kind of is my mentality. And I feel like we can mobilize that better than we have. And it's a constant chase, man. And there's action every single day. And I absolutely love it.
See, somebody the other day, because I was talking about what it means to be from Pittsburgh, and they were like, well, you lived 45 minutes outside of Pittsburgh. I said, well, I moved a lot. I wasn't an Army kid, but I did move a lot, right? And got to see the different areas and different facets of Pittsburgh. And the one thing that you get to see that's very like-minded everywhere in Pittsburgh, whether you're in a suburban, a hood, or the country, is that you're gritty. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I don't care if you're a white kid in the country, a black kid in the hood, or somebody that's chilling in the suburbs, right? You played football on concrete at least once. Yeah. Bare minimum once. You've played basketball outside in the cold. Yep. So like that type of stuff, man, when I talk about what it means to be from Pittsburgh, like when you're from Pittsburgh, you just can't talk shit to us. No. Like I don't care if you got 1,000 stars behind your name. You're going to have to show me. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's the one reason why I genuinely think that I stayed in Pittsburgh is because like ain't nobody out here soft. And ain't nobody out here just going for anything that you think you're going to do in this place or in this neighborhood. That's why you see often Pitt beats a number 2 team or Pitt beats a top 10 team. And they're like, well, why can't Pitt figure it out? We got our own problems. You know what I'm saying? But if you come in here talking your shit, popping your lip, thinking it's going to be smooth, oh, we going to punch you directly in your face. Mm-hmm. And then after that, you got to make a decision. Right. Do you really want to fight? Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, do you really want to fight? Like, you say you want to fight, but like, once I hit you in your mouth, do you really want to fight? Right. So we get into this new space, right? We talked a little bit about it. You said it already, the NIL space. I was talking to Doran at the beginning. I'm like, Doran, what would we have done in terms of numbers coming out of high school? Pat, I want to know what you would have done as a Gatorade player of the year.
All right, we'll stop it there. Obviously, if you have not done so yet, make sure you head over to Oakland Originals. Obviously, go in there. Obviously, subscribe. Watch the video here. Obviously, plenty of good stuff there to say the least. And again, the conversation is incredible. But man, that kind of stuff just like fires you up a little bit. Like behind the scenes, obviously, again, you know, I was always a big football guy growing up. You know, obviously played baseball in college and whatnot. But I'll tell you what, it's good that finally the leadership's there, but it's all moving in the right direction business-wise. I think for decades, Pitt really mismanaged that in terms of being a business. It was too much behind the scenes of we're just going to work as a university. You know, we're going to work as, no business. Obviously, we're going to try to raise money here and there. The brand's really, really good. It's not elite. It's on the border of good and great, but not elite. We're down here, not up here. And I think now it's finally moved in the right direction where you bring in a guy like Alan Green, who comes from the SEC. We've hired a number of different SEC attributes and people that are obviously going into his athletic department, which is huge. You're bringing a lot of SEC people over into the Pitt athletic department, which has been big. There are more additions to come. Obviously, he's worked a lot behind the scenes. He's added a lot of corporate sponsorships on there, a lot of stuff in terms of that. But the conversation will continue to grow as you continue to watch this year go on with Alan Green. He continues to put his implementation on there. And Alan Green has talked about it on there as well with Pat Bostic on 93.7 The Fan, the Insider Panthers show at 8 a.m. on Saturdays. Talked a really good bit about, obviously Pitt fans doing a good job of buying their season tickets. So obviously this year so far, Pitt has added roughly and the 2,000 to 3,000 new season ticket holders, which is really, really good overall. It continues to grow. I think really the past, besides the rough year between the 3 and 9 season, we were really averaging between 52 to 55,000 people at games, obviously, which was a massive factor in terms of being able to generate revenue. Obviously helps out the athletic department, helps out other sports at the athletic department as well. So obviously anytime you're able to go to Alliance 412, the athletic directors fund, or obviously simply just buying season tickets is obviously huge. Obviously I have to renew my season tickets. Obviously I'll be doing that here in the next couple of weeks to get ready for the season, obviously. But obviously the spring game coming up, transitioning back to the spring game, obviously as you can imagine here, which is a great comment here from WRW Pitt, the first time in 3 years that I am comfortable with the quarterback position, starter and backup. And to your point here, WRW Pitt, I agree. Obviously, there's no question and no doubt that obviously Eli Holstein is your quarterback at number 1. But it was really good to see a guy like Julian Duggar. While I understand it was Toledo, end of the year, guys are missing people from here and there. Julian Duggar clearly proved himself to be that guy and that he shouldn't have been lower. He shouldn't have been lower than really third third or second on the depth chart with obviously Nate Yarnell here. I think that overall, that's what the bowl game should be for. If you're not playing in a New Year's Six bowl and whatnot, you're still obviously playing to win, no matter what. When you're out there, I got news for you. If you're not playing to win, get the hell off the field. But Julian Duggar really proved a lot of good work for a guy who did not play all year. Goes into that game, really proves himself as a guy who can play at this level. While Pitt was the only Power 4 offer at the time, Power 5 offer for Julian Duggar, he was the only one. Pitt was the only school that really trusted him and really gave belief in Julian Duggar. And I think now we're going to potentially see that. And until, we see the durability of Eli Holstein, obviously the offensive line will be a lot better this year, which is a massive factor. But you want to make sure you have that guy that's really behind him that can throw the football and run. And I really look at Julian Duggar as a guy who's a dual threat quarterback. We've seen a lot of his obviously, he had a number of great throws. Actually, I wonder if I can bring that up here just to show some of the people just how good some of these throws were in the bowl game. Maybe you can pull it up here, obviously, if I can find it here. Let me see here. Let's see if I can find some of them here. Let's see here. Let's see if I can find some here. All right, here we go. Here's a little bit of film right here. Obviously, the other stuff in here does not look good. We're not going to talk about that, obviously. Some here, obviously, just from the loss to Toledo. But some of the good stuff here from Julian Duggar, just some of the highlights here. Let's see here. Pop up on the screen here.
Lynch was in there to start the drive. You bring in Duggar.
Really good here, Julian Duggar. Steps back. Look at this throw.
Duggar, end zone, touchdown, Panthers. 3rd and 10 here at Ford Field in Detroit. Intercepted. Chris Brookins. Field in
really
Detroit.
Good play by Cruz. Another guy to watch out for
3rd
this
and
year.
10 here at Ford.
Another guy to watch out here for this year is Cruz Brookins here. Really good play. Obviously, here's Cruz right here. Already lining up. Obviously, the linebackers. Obviously, the Pitt defense, when you look at them, obviously I love that. One of the things I loved about Pitt defense, obviously, is that the deception across the board here. You don't know who's coming, who's going. Obviously, Cruz Brookins right here, making sure he's calling it out here. You look at, obviously, Kyle Lewis coming to the side here, a potential guy for a blitzer. Obviously, looks to be here. He's covering one-on-one with him here. Watch Cruz Brookins here make a hell of a play right here on defense.
3rd and 10 here at Ford Field in Detroit. Gleason.
Boom.
Is intercepted. Cruz Brookins wins it back for the Panthers. Still going. And the redshirt freshman has one heck of a return.
Here's Julian Duggar again. Great throw here.
2nd and 15.
Pressure. Moves up in the pocket.
Duggar. Zips it. Caught. Touchdown, Pitt.
Another play. I think it's an interception.
Duggar.
Yeah.
Intercepted.
Still. Again, a good throw here.
2nd and turn.
Boom.
2nd and 15.
Pressure. Step up in here.
Duggar.
Throw. Boom.
Zips it. Caught. Touchdown.
Again, just off balance here. Watch him throw this.
2nd and 15. Duggar. Zips it. Caught. Touchdown, Pitt.
Might be one more in here. Overall, great play here.
Desmond Reed back into the game. Here comes the pressure. Duggar under duress. Incomplete.
Still, again, a number of good throws in there from Julian Duggar that you watched in that game and said, man, he did have a hell of a game. Obviously, the stats weren't blown off the stat sheet, to say the least. But when you watch that guy step up in the pocket, make a lot of great throws, not scared of getting hit, I think that's a massive factor there, too. You saw a number of different plays. Again, we talked about the deception on the defensive side there, obviously playing quarters defense, but so much deception in front. Cruz Brookins working from the back end, a guy I'm going to love to watch again this year, a guy to watch out for this year is Cruz Brookins, obviously back there with Javon McIntyre at the safety position. But you're watching, again, Cruz Brookins move a guy, especially Kyle Lewis. You're looking at, obviously, the running back come out to the slot. Kyle Lewis does a great job of being able to cover him right in the flat. Cruz Brookins stays back, doesn't get decepted at all when it comes to their routes, especially two coming over the middle of the field. Cruz Brookins steps up and makes a hell of a play, which I think is just phenomenal in itself. Really good to watch there as well. And again, when we're going into spring camp, WRW Pitt, probably, again, the first time in 3 years, I still like Nate Yarnell. I mean, you don't call Nate Yarnell a dual threat quarterback, but he certainly had a lot of experience, and you saw a lot of success there. Just was not able to stay healthy on a number of numerous occasions. But again, the first time in 3 years, I do like this. I mean, we got two really dual threat quarterbacks that can play, and Julian Duggar's really one of those guys. I think he can really step up and be a massive factor in going forward. Adam Vincic, DBs will have a better year. We will be able to apply more pressure with our line next year. I agree as well. I think the defensive backs will be better, but obviously, too, I think the defensive line's going to be better. I think overall, Joey Zielinski, coming from Eastern Michigan, a guy that they projected when he hit the portal, a guy who was going to be easily power 4. The amount of experience he has. Blaine Spires, coming from Utah State, a Youngstown kid. He's going to be really good. But obviously, too, Jaden Moore. Jaden Moore coming in from Oregon is going to be a massive factor. And then you still have Jimmy Scott, returning starter from last year on the defensive side of the football. Last year's really his first time really being a starter, but towards the end of the year, he turned it the hell on. Nate Temple will be back at 100% this year as well. You obviously got Maverick Gracia that's there. Ty Uhas will certainly work his way in there as well. So you've certainly got the depth there. You certainly get the piece that you need there. If somebody really pops out in terms of the transfer portal, you could say, hey, this guy can easily compete for a starting job. Then you bring him in and you certainly have that conversation going forward. And it'll be certainly fun to see. Does spring football start in a couple weeks? Zach, it starts next week. This week, obviously, this Monday through Friday, obviously the players are back home or obviously on a spring break. And some people say they're on spring break this week, but next week will be the start of spring camp. Spring football camp will start, I guess, here. If I had to pull up my calendar here, spring camp will start March 10th. But I guess they're all, I mean, they'll all be there in the building March 9th. And then it'll start that Monday on March 10th. So overall, I think that's really the biggest thing that I'm looking for. And again, I'm really looking for the year two of the Cade Bell offense and watching this offense finally take that to that next level, really going into that stratosphere of we're staying up tempo the entire game. You saw, in the latter portion of the year, really at the last, 4 to 5 games, they really slowed down a lot because of injuries across the board, to Eli Holstein, to the offensive line, to running backs, to wide receivers. I mean, we had injuries everywhere. That stuff has to change this year. Stay healthy to where the offense stays where it needs to stay. The high up-tempo level of offense that we currently need. That's where you want to stay at. It's a fact. They have to stay healthy, especially two up front. I think that's going to be a massive factor. And you really want to see this offense really take hold and go to that next level. And I think that Cade Bell had a number of games last year all the way through. Heck, even with Nate Yarnell threw for 350 yards of total passing against Clemson, which proved, I mean, a lot of questions, too, I got from a number of different people. Obviously, they certainly said in the second half of the year, well, the system doesn't work and it's not going to be sustainable. Well, it clearly was sustainable when you throw for 350 yards of total, of passing, over 100 yards rushing against Clemson and that defense, which, I mean, their offense has always been questionable these last couple of years, but their defense has always been great. I think the biggest thing this year is finishing those drives. They have to. Because if you finish those drives and if the defense holds on or they get more points, you beat Clemson. You should have beat Virginia. That's instead of being 7-6, you're really 9-4 right there. It's a big change. You should have beaten Boston College. So there's a number of different areas across the board, but to be consistent and to get to 9+ wins, which for me, that's the floor. I mean, if you can't get to 9 wins this year, it's a failure of a season. I just call it what it is. And I think that the staff understands that. They certainly feel the pressure, to say the least. You got to start winning football games. You got to win those games that you're supposed to win. And you saw even in the clip that Trey Tipton talked about there, they said in 2021 we should have beaten Western Michigan. Obviously, it ended up leading to a great year for Pitt because that loss really turned around their philosophy in terms of the spread offense and the RPO system. The same thing like this year with Notre Dame. Notre Dame lost to Illinois, Northern Illinois at home, which is a horrible loss for them, but they end up still going to the national title game. It just sets the table for something else, but you shouldn't have to suffer those losses to really wake up and to see the major deficiencies in your defense or your offense. And I think that's going into this year, to be successful, Pitt needs to win the games it's supposed to win. And that's consistent play calling. That's Pat Narduzzi not going off into la-la land where it's 4th and 1 on the 1 yard line and you're kicking a field goal when you're going for 2-point conversions the rest of the way in overtime. I still say to this point that Pat didn't know. I don't think Pat knew the overtime rules. That's just my opinion. And the coaching staff needs to be better and the players need to be better. It's that simple. It needs to be more consistent, and they need to play their asses off every single game, because I talked about it down the stretch last year. After they lost that first game to SMU, it almost felt like a number of starters quit, and that's just unacceptable when you're getting paid. I don't care, I don't care what level you're at, but when you're out there on the field, you're playing your ass off, and you're playing at a high level, and you're playing all the time, especially when you're getting paid. Because if you're not going to play hard, then the NIL money should be taken away from you. It's that simple. But obviously, going into this season, the players need to be consistent, playing at a high level all the time. But also, too, the coaching staff needs to be better at making critical decisions in especially crucial times of the game and pushing guys, especially through practices in the games. That's going to be the really well-known facet going forward. Obviously, the wide receiver room this year, I think, will be deeper. We're going to miss a guy like Kanate Mumfield. But obviously, Andy Jean coming in, Andy Jean from Florida, Deuce Spann from Florida State. Kenny Johnson will be wide receiver 1 going into this year. Obviously, we're going to need him a lot, and we really need him to step up and take that next step in his development this year. And I think that he will have a really big this year and go off to the NFL after this year. But Kenny Johnson, Deuce Spann from Florida State, Andy Jean from Florida. You've got those 3 guys that are there. Obviously, Raphael Poppy Williams coming back. Raphael Poppy Williams, from numerous people that I've talked to, had torn ligaments in both of his thumbs. He did have surgery on those. He's back 100% now. Obviously, he was recovering through the offseason here. He should be back at 100%. Obviously, CJ Lee will be 100%. I don't expect him to go through too much stuff here in the spring because we'll need him during the fall. So I expect to see him have a light spring. Obviously, not playing the spring game. Obviously, that's really a big one for me. But obviously, there you'll have those guys there. Obviously, those top echelon guys. Obviously, Blue Hicks, Katoris Blue Hicks, the wide receiver transfer from Louisville. He'll be a guy in the slot a lot, so he'll be there. So really, at that point, you've got those 3 transfers there. Those 3 transfers. CJ Lee 4, Raphael Papa Williams 5. Obviously, Kenny Johnson 6. I mean, so you got really 6 wide receivers right there, and you still got Zion Fowler-El that's currently in there. You got Tyreek Robinson, who came in. He started to play a lot towards the end of the year. I think we'll probably see a lot more of him this year. So you got 6, 7, or almost 7 or 8 guys you could rotate into that wide receiver room right now. And you got a mixture between really good size and guys that are smaller with a lot of speed. And we've seen a lot of these guys really step up in crucial situations through last year. But we needed to be a lot more fluent, but a lot more consistent going into this year. For Pitt to be successful and get to that 9+ wins, you got to be consistent. You got to stay healthy. You need to see a lot of that going into this year. Obviously, going through a number of different topics here, obviously. And I think that the last topic here, and we really touched on it there for what Pitt needs to be successful is obviously winning those games, be more consistent, playing at a high level all the time, not when you want to play at a high level, play at a high level throughout the entire year. It's that simple. Obviously, Adam Vincic, another question here. If Yarnell was mobile, the Clemson game wouldn't have been close, would have moved the chains a lot. I agree. I think there have been more opportunities to move the chains. Obviously, I think there's a number of different times. The defense played great in that game, except for the first drive of the game and the last drive of the game. Those are the 2 touchdowns that you saw across the board right there. And they were just so crucial down the stretch. It just didn't work out. But, I mean, still in that game, you would have loved to see Yarnell be more mobile, but, still threw for 350 yards in that game, which was a massive factor. Saw the run really spurt. That the run game didn't look great in that game, but it was enough to keep a certain portion of the sticks going. So there's a number of different things that could certainly change across the board there. But again, playing consistent at a high level to be great in the power forward, you got to play your ass off every single play for every game, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 games a year. It's just that simple. There are no ands, ors, or buts about it. It's that simple. Again, for the roster, the last topic of the night, the roster, again, quarterback position, I think they're pretty much set there, obviously, with Eli Holstein and Julian Duggar at the top, obviously, and then Mason Heinschel coming in as a third-string quarterback, and then Bo Jackson, he'll be a walk-on this year, but I think he'll have a really good opportunity to earn a scholarship from the tape that I've watched and enough people that I've talked to with the Pitt program. He's got a really good opportunity to earn a scholarship, to say the least. Also, too, the running back room at a pure luxury. If there's a bigger running back, potentially you can add to the portal, maybe add one there. I still think that Pitt's going to be very active in the portal after the spring camp when it comes to the offensive line. And obviously, too, we'll see which guys leave after spring camp. There are going to be guys that are not on the 2 deep that will more than likely leave. If they're not going to play and they're not on the 2 deep, they're not going to affect next season. There's probably a good opportunity for you to go play somewhere else. So there's certainly good opportunities for that as well. We'll continue to monitor that. The tight end position, I think, is a crucial one. Jake Overman, who ended up being a great tight end for us last year, certainly backed up Gavin Bartholomew, but Jake Overman was on the field quite often, and especially, too, when they were in 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends, I think, which was critical, to say the least. I think he did a great job last year. He's currently tight end number 1. Malachi Thomas and Jake Renda will certainly fight out, for the option 2 and 3. But I think potentially for a guy that's been proven in college football, if a guy really makes a lot of sense that can really go in there and can compete for a starting job, that's a guy to watch out for, the tight end position. So along with the offensive line, tight end, running back, those are luxuries almost. I think offensive line and tight end are more crucial. Defensive ends, if there's one more defensive end that you can find and say, hey, he's a great playmaker, he can come in here, make a lot of plays, and add to our depth, you add that guy. When it comes to the linebacker room, I think linebacker's all set. Bonsu, the transfer from Ohio State, he talked to the media recently. He's not going to be a safety. He will be a linebacker at the star position. I think it's a really good move for him. Physical, if you've seen his stature, he's a guy that I think he could play certainly at a high level. Let me see if I can find his interview here. Ohio State, former top 100 recruit, just couldn't get on the field at Ohio State in his first couple of years, obviously, just because that's a deep crew. And I think he's going to get on the field here quite a bit, to be quite frank with you. Let me see here. See if I can find those interviews with him. Let me see here. Yeah. I know it's in here somewhere. Yeah, Jaden Bond. So here we go. Let's share my screen here. All right, sharing the screen here. Here's Jaden Bonsu, 4-star linebacker / DB from Ohio State, transfer from Ohio State, former top 100 recruit. Here's his comments about Pitt, and obviously a guy that's going to be a major factor for this year moving forward.
Linebacker?
Yes, sir. That's the idea. Obviously, coming from Ohio State, I was mostly at the safety position, but I'm a very versatile player, so I feel like I can play anywhere on the field.
What have they told you about that star linebacker position, and how it works, and why it would be a good fit for you?
Mainly my body type, and my physicality, my speed. Players that we have on the team now, they're doing very well at that star position. So my body type, my archetype, I could succeed at that position as well.
How do you kind of reflect on your time at Ohio State? How do you feel like you grew as a player and person there?
I would say obviously a great coach like Coach Day, Coach Tim Walton, Coach Guerreri. They have a lot of great teaching, a lot of experience. So being under a coaching tree like that, you're always going to be a better man, a better person under those people like that.
Jay, at one point, were you aware of some of the things the Pitt linebackers were doing, and how much did that impact your decision to see what Kyle and others were able to do?
Can you repeat that?
How much were you able to watch what the Pitt linebackers did last year? Obviously, probably not during the season, you're busy with your own, but on tape, what excited you about the way they played?
What mostly excited me was how versatile the linebackers were. So there was a certain coverage I seen where like the star linebacker would be back in the post, next play would be blitzing, playing cover 4. So that really speaks to my playing type. So that's what really intrigued me.
What was it like growing and learning in that Ohio State program, coming from a championship type team?
So what was like growing there?
Yeah, what was it just like learning? What are some of the things you can bring from there here?
Mostly like your mentality. Something big that they harped on in Ohio State was accountability and a player-led team. And that's mainly what probably catapulted them to being a national championship team. So, yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, how big are you now? What's your height and weight?
6'1.5", 209.
Have you been like kind of working with the other linebackers, learning from those guys?
Yeah, linebackers and safeties. Yes, sir.
Who have you been like talking to the most or watching film with the most?
Good to have.
You saying from a player's perspective or coach? Obviously Kyle, guys like that. Safety room, Coach Sanders. We have to get a lot of time with him, Coach Manilak. So yeah.
Did you get recruited by Pitt out of high school?
Yes, sir.
Which coaches did you kind of get to know, and were you able to start up?
It was mainly Coach Sanders because in high school, I was playing safety in a nickel position. I didn't really play too much like backer, so I was mainly like a DB in high school. So, yeah.
It'll be interesting. He's working with both linebackers and safety, which is really big. A dual threat guy can play both.
I'm just maintaining right now. Yeah, season 209 is good for me. Yeah.
What's your relationship like with Coach Manilak?
It was great. He was the main recruiter when I was on my visit, and we just had countless conversations on my decision of being here. I had other visits lined up, but he was the real sealing piece to me coming here.
What's your impression of Pitt different now than when it was when they were recruiting you in high school?
When you were in high school and you were a highly recruited kid, you could overlook schools like this because you got Ohio State and Georgia and stuff like that coming at you. But I never took a visit here, and I think that probably would have changed my perspective, like actually being here. So once I took my visit here, like it's also unique too when you got the Steelers right next door. I didn't know that in the beginning, but my perspective definitely changed when I took my visit.
Showing up on campus, man, that was huge.
My first impression, you're kind of hard to read sometimes, but when you sit down and talk to him, great guy. Perspective definitely changed when I took my visit.
What were your first impressions of Coach Narduzzi?
My first impression, you're kind of hard to read sometimes, but when you sit down and talk to him, great guy.
Sean, how's it feel to end up here?
It feels great. This is
Rashawn
home for
Murray.
me, so that's a great opportunity for me.
Welcome to a vacation
Rashawn Murray,
that's
obviously,
so
we'll do a
much
little bit of
more
that, and then
with
we'll conclude the
Norwegian
show.
Cruise
But
Line. Let
Rashawn
sunny
Murray is
Spain
huge. Obviously, a
seduce you.
defensive back,
Okay.
hometown hero kid, All-American at the D2 level from Cal U. Come up here.
Yeah.
Like Garfield or
Say that again.
what neighborhood are you from?
East Liberty area. Yeah.
What's the difference for you, like playing in the city league, and how do you think that, I guess, just coming back here, sort of living that journey makes it all sense?
It's gonna be great because I can have a lot of family and friends come to the games and everything as well. So it's gonna be great.
What's the excitement been like with your family and friends to have you kind of back and being able to see them on it?
They've been real excited though, definitely.
Was there a moment last season when you were capable of not doing that Division I, but
Yeah. From the beginning of the season, I had a great start of my season done. I just knew from the jump, like that's where I want to be. I want to go up after next year.
What made the start of the season so great?
I came out fast. Like I made a lot of plays early though.
So what did you learn from that to where you can come out fast to start this year?
Same mentality. Just come out, head down, ready to work.
What did they tell you about kind of the opportunity that's here for a corner?
Say that again.
What did they tell you about the opportunity that's here as far as corner and what they need?
They press a lot though. I like that though in my game. I like to press a lot. I have great ball skills though. So when it comes to taking the ball away, though, I'll be there.
Defensive back Rashawn Murray, obviously going to be a massive factor moving forward for Pitt coming into the season. Obviously, this season he'll be competing for that cornerback spot. Obviously, you got obviously returning guys like Rashad Battle, Taman Lynham. You got those two guys are there. Obviously, Rashawn Murray is currently there. Shadarian Harrison's also in that room as well. So you got a number of guys, different guys back and forth overall, back and forth. So they'll be fun to watch, to say the least. Guys, did another show. Obviously, I don't see any super chats, any more of those. So, guys, obviously, as always and forever, obviously, if there's any more questions and stuff like that, we'll be back on next week. There'll be some more stuff dropping. If you haven't done so, hit the like button and subscribe down below. Some information coming out about the ACC, obviously the Big 12 and the private capital. I'll be talking about that and why the ACC should not be doing that. And I'm glad they're not doing that, because paying 10 to 15% on potentially $100 to $200 million loan is just absolutely mind-boggling. We'll be talking about that. I'll be releasing a video on that, so you'll want to see that. If you are subscribed to the show, you will certainly see that, and as soon as it drops, you'll be updated immediately. So, guys, another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Of course, guys, as always, now and forever, hail to Pitt and hail to the ACC. I'll see you next time.